Okay, next on stage is Carnaby Resources Managing Director, Rob Watkins. Rob's a geologist with over 25 years exploration experience and a proven track record of exploration success. Rob was previously founding executive director of Bedell Resources and prior to that exploration manager of Agincourt Resources. He's now the managing director of Carnaby Resources, which was founded in 2019. Welcome to the stage, Rob.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks to the Diggers organisers for giving Carnaby the opportunity to present for the first time. Just a snapshot on Carnaby. Like Jeremy said, we backdoor listed into Burkitt Minerals at 7.8 cents in 2019, so we've only been going for just on 3 years. We've had a little success up in the Pilbara, but really things took off between Christmas and New Year's at late last year when we announced the discovery of high-grade copper in the Isa Inlier, which will be the focus of the talk today. We have a very tight capital structure, only 140 million shares on issue, $18 million, well-funded, and a very solid top 20 shareholder base who have been there mostly for the whole journey, and we think there's a long way to go here. So the directors, myself, Peter and Greg, have been together for a long time. This is our third company together. Started out with Agincourt, then Bedell, and now Carnaby. And Paul Payne, I should mention, he came through with Burkitt. We've got to know Paul very well in the last 3 years. A great technical guy. He is a well-regarded resource estimator. He recently did the resource for Hemi, so he's going to get busy with us as well in the near future. In terms of jurisdiction, we are certainly 100% Australian focused, and really right now we're in Queensland. We're in the Mount Isa Inlier. We do have some early stage projects in the Pilbara and in Western Australia, which we won't touch on really today, but welcome to come to the booth and run through those as well. In terms of the Mount Isa Inlier, it's worth just having a bit of a snapshot of the current status of the Inlier. It's obviously a very mature district. A lot of discoveries back in the early 80s and 90s, which were numerous standalone operations were built. They've been operating for over 30 years now since a major discovery, and that sort of sets the scene for in terms of the last 2 years when the copper price has really resurged, and looks like it's going to continue. That exploration in the Inlier is really going to come to the forefront, and certainly there's lots of opportunities for discoveries to get commercialised. In terms of the location of the project, you can see we're located right in the heart of the Mount Isa Inlier. We're 70 k's southeast of Mount Isa itself. That's the railway that comes down, goes through Duchess and heads up to Cloncurry. It's a sealed road all the way to Cloncurry, a sealed road all the way to Osborne, so we're very well positioned. And this is a bit of just a brief history of what happened. Recent history is the discovery of the Nil Esperantum discovery, which we announced 41 metres at 4.1% copper. And we soon follow that up within the next a couple of months with another discovery at Lady Fanny, only 3 kilometres to the north. And then only in the last 2 months we've announced the acquisition of the Mount Hope mining lease. So we think we've got a really strategic corridor there. It's obviously 2 very significant discoveries, and we think there's going to be many more. And I guess one thing I would mention about is the IP. The geophysics has been a game changer. That's the 41 at 4% was drilled on an IP anomaly. We're generating lots of those anomalies, and IP doesn't work everywhere, but in this corridor it seems to be working exceptionally well, and it's picking out copper sulfides. And I'll probably just mention also to the key geophysics crews there, Planetary and Southern Geoscience, who have done all the work there, so big congrats to them. In terms of the land package itself, if you look up the top of the page there's Nil Esperantum, there's Lady Fanny, and further up to the north is Mount Hope. That's the corridor we think is really prospective and we're really going hard at. I would say that it is these deposits are structurally controlled, so you look, and the mineralisation is very late. So all those black faults, you can see that fault networks, that's where the copper and gold's following. So we think we've identified a real strong pathway south of Nil-Desprandum, tracking down. You can see those tenements we've pegged only recently. And I'd say those tenements, in terms of Mount Isa being a very mature district, it is definitely a mature district for the outcropping areas. For the areas that are undercover, which is those tenements we've just pegged down that Macbat and Magdalene, there is extremely almost unexplored. That whole belt there through the Magdalene, there's not a single drill hole, and yet we think it's possibly the following the conduit of Nil-Desprandum down to the south. So there's lots of exploration potential in Isa. In the more, Mount Isa Inliers is a very exposed area. There's a lot of outcropping rocks, great mineralisation at surface, lots of historical prospecting over 100 years. You can see all those deposits down the right-hand side. They're mostly turn of the century discovery or prospects. But there are some little gems that we've really pounced on, and as these old mining leases. So back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, there was a boom with copper in the Isa. There was all the gouges. A little bit unregulated, but what happened was you have these mining leases held by private companies, and since that time the mining lease would sit there for about 30 years and eventually get relinquished, and very little record of any work that's been done, and unbelievably no drilling. So we've got 3 of those, so Mount Hope, and Lady Fanny and Mount Burney, and yeah, we certainly think there's more of those to come. If we're just zooming into the Nil-Desprandum corridor now, down the bottom there you see Nil-Desprandum. There's the IP anomaly, the original IP anomaly we drilled to get the 40 metres at 4%. And then we followed up a month later with Lady Fanny discovery to the north, which is an old mining lease. We drilled that and we did a lot more IP through there. The IP is just working exceptionally. You see at Lady Fanny where the outcropping mineralisation is, there's a strong IP chargeability anomaly. And since that time, only in the last 2 months, we've infilled this section in between Nil-Desprandum and Lady Fanny with 9 lines of IP. And this corridor, we think we're really excited about this corridor. I'd point out the Shamrock prospect, which is off to the just northeast of Nil-Desprandum. That very strong IP chargeability, lots of historical workings. It's a Nil-Desprandum lookalike and not a single drill hole in it. And the other major IP anomaly we're chasing is Lady Fanny South. You can see that south of Lady Fanny up the top there, you get all those IP anomalies heading down to the south, and we're getting some of the strongest chargeability anomalies there, and it looks like possibly the plunge continuation to the south. In terms of the aeromag, we flew this aeromag. This is very recent, and structure is the key. And that northeast fault you can see heading up towards Nil-Desprandum, we think that is the host structure. And you can see Nil-Desprandum south of the green drill holes there. That's all the drill holes. There is no drilling to the southwest. So there's huge upside here, and we're only really just scratching the surface. So just zooming into Nil-Desprandum, this is a long section plan view. Up the top of the page is where the Nil-Desprandum breccia pipe daylights. Is a little bit lower grade up the top, and then as you chase it down, it becomes higher grade. And I guess it's worth just mentioning in terms of the history here, all the previous historical work was chasing a northwest orientation with the workings you can see there, and all the lines of IP were in that orientation as well. We were the first ones. We turned the IP line around 90 degrees, and that was the one that got the 40 metres at 4%. So we're just going to quickly look at a few sections through the upper section of Nil-Desprandum. This is where it daylights on the left-hand side. Very big, broad zones of 0.6, 0.7%, 50 plus metres. And this thing plunges down at about 40 to 50 degrees to the southwest. The grade starts to increase to 50 metres to about 1%. And then when you get to the really high grade, where it's getting up to big wide zones of up to 4% copper. This breccia pipe is certainly extremely continuous. We're very confident about chasing this down plunge, and it's completely open at depth. We certainly, there's a long way to go here. We're certainly the southwesternmost hole we've drilled is still hitting mineralisation, so we certainly keep the chasing. So we drill this to about 500 metres below surface, which gives us a sort of an 800 metre down plunge extent and completely open. Lady Fanny, again, this is an old mining lease 3 kilometres north of Nil Esperanum. You can see this is the old mining lease, and unbelievably there was no recorded drilling in this entire mining lease. So all this drilling you can see is our drilling. We certainly, you can see some of the results there, and the beauty here is that the high grade is at the surface. So we're looking at a continuously mineralised zone of over 600 metres long, and there's a core high grade zone of 300 metres. It's certainly open down plunge. We think it is plunging to the north, and we have a very strong IP chargeability anomaly to the north there, which we're about to drill. And again, here's a series of sections through Lady Fanny. It's very different to Nil Esperanum. It's not a breccia. This is an upright, subvertical anastomosing shear zones, multiple shear zones, very continuous. So if we look at Lady Fanny South, and I'll just point to the IP on the 3D diagram there on the left-hand side. We've just been talking about Lady Fanny. We've only just completed these 9 lines of IP to the south there, and you can see this Lady Fanny South is the strongest IP anomaly that we've seen at Lady Fanny. We've drilled 2 holes into that. One was a diamond hole. We hit 110 metres of halo-style disseminated and stringer copper sulphides, chalcopyrite. And out of that core, so obviously the IP anomaly certainly looks like it's again being driven by copper sulphide mineralisation. But the core is showing that the stratigraphy or the shear zone, the mineralised shear zones are dipping to the west. So we think we've actually drilled possibly the wrong way. We need to come back and scissor this and drill right through the guts of that IP anomaly and see what we get. So the Mount Hope was a recent acquisition, just 10 kilometres north of Lady Fanny, but we think we're in the same sequence there where the IP is working. We thought the IP would work really well here. We've just completed the IP and we're seeing the strongest chargeability anomalies that we've seen throughout the whole of the Greater Duchess area. The northern area there, we've drilled 3 holes so far. Those ones in yellow, we don't have any results for those. But you can see that section through the left-hand side there, we drilled right through the middle of the IP anomaly. We hit a very nice looking 12 metre quartz copper sulphide vein. And just to put that in scale, that from that pierce point up to the surface there where the Mount Hope North open pit is, that's 200 metres. So you're looking at the scale of what we're drilling in these initial holes. And also point out another hole, MHRC 11, which was drilled just to the north of there, straight through underneath the pit and hit a really nice looking zone as well. To the south, we've got a couple of results from 2 holes we drilled. They were done before the IP. We're seeing some very nice wide zones which look like they're increasing to the west, and certainly the pit there, the intersection of where towards the middle of that pit is where it gets deeper and wider. So we're certainly hopeful we're going to get some very good results out of the next round of drilling. And most encouraging as well is the IP anomalies in the middle of the mining lease. And again, so that we are yet to drill these, but obviously based on what we've seen so far, the IP is working extremely well. But again, Mount Hope is another classic where there was no recorded drilling, historical drilling. So there are these opportunities that do exist. Duchess, I'll just touch on Duchess quickly. You can see this is a plan view of Duchess. You can see up the top of the page where the railway comes down. It does a big arc around the pub. That's the pub where our camp is, where we stay. So it comes all the way down from Mount Isa, swings around there and heads up to Cloncurry. And the reason it does that because of the Duchess deposit, 12.5% copper ore body that was mined between 1900 and 1940. Exceptional grade. And remarkably very little drilling in this area as well. Barrick completed about, you see the holes there, about 6 holes, 120 metres deep. They didn't even get beneath the level of the workings. So the first thing we did there is obviously the IP is working exceptionally well. We've done 3 lines of IP. You can see those IP anomalies, they're directly beneath the shaft. So it looks like there's certainly encouragement there and we're drilling that very soon. The IP anomaly survey also encouragingly identified a brand new target the Western IP anomaly, which has never been drilled. There's not a single drill hole in that, and it does look very encouraging in terms of the position of that located to the Ivanhoe lode, which is a non-JORC 2004 resource. So yeah, I've got a couple of slides on the Western Australian projects, but I won't go into those. So just in terms of wrapping up, we're continuing with 2 drill rigs. We've had two drill rigs drilling at Diamond and RC since the start of the year. We're waiting on more IP results. We're generating more IP targets than we can drill. And we continue to do the extensional drilling at Nil Esperanto and Lady Fanny, but I'd really point out these 5 prospects there: Mount Hope, Lady Fanny South, North, Shamrock and Duchess. All of those prospects have got very significant chargeability anomalies, and based on what we've seen previously, there's a very good chance that we're going to find something pretty significant there as well. So wrapping up, yeah, look, I think we're certainly onto a very significant copper gold discovery. We think there's a real good chance to get this up at some stage, but we're certainly well in the exploration phase currently. We are in the heart of Australia's copper gold industry in Mount Isa Inlier, and as I said, there's lots of opportunities there for processing. Strong news flow, strong balance sheet, and experienced management team. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks very much, Rob. Are there any questions before lunch? Yeah, gentleman down here. Have we got a microphone?
Keith, it looks like you're very well funded for ongoing exploration and plenty of incentive to continue drilling, but do you have any timelines for a maiden resource, or is that just a lot further down the track at the moment?
We certainly, yes, the resource is interesting. We don't think we'll be at a point of looking at a resource until definitely next year, possibly early next year, but it really depends how we go from here. If we keep finding more resources, then we're just completely focused on growing that resource base before we put out a maiden resource.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks again, Rob. Just a quick reminder, a bit of housekeeping. I think we're due back here at 1:15 for Pantoro. Enjoy the lunch break. Thanks again. Well done.